Minnetonka. It's one of those names you hear, and it just sounds like it has history, doesn't it?
It really does. And it comes from the Dakota language.
Right. Big water.
Exactly. Mini for water, Tonka meaning big. And this area, the lake and the land around it, was sacred to the Native American tribes here.
So today, we want to get into the story of the city of Minnetonka, Minnesota. It's a western suburb of the Twin Cities.
About 10 miles west of Minneapolis, yeah.
And while Lake Minnetonka itself is huge and maybe more famous, the city actually includes, well, the eastern tip of the lake.
That's right. So our aim here is really to unpack what makes the city of Minnetonka tick. You know, its history, its character.
Just find the most interesting bits.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And the story goes back. The first documented visit by Euro-Americans was apparently in 1822.
A group came out from Fort Snelling.
Yeah, they followed Minnehaha Creek out to the lake. But the big turning point for settlement was the Treaty of Traverse des Sioux in 1851.
Ah, okay. That's when the Dakota sold the land, including this area, to the U.S.
It opened it up. And almost immediately, in 1852, you get the first permanent European-American settlement, Minnetonka Mills.
Minnetonka Mills. And that grew up around a sawmill, didn't it?
The very first private sawmill in Minnesota, west of the Mississippi, actually.
Wow. And I read the oak timbers from that mill were used for the first suspension bridge over the Mississippi.
At St. Anthony Falls, yeah. So you see, right from the start, this local mill was having a much wider impact.
That's fascinating. So it wasn't just the sawmill.
No, they added a furniture factory pretty quickly, 1855.
Yeah.
Making, chairs, bedsteads, basic stuff for a growing community.
It paints a picture of a place really building itself up.
Definitely. Though things changed, as they often do, the sawmill actually closed down in 1860.
Only 8 years.
Relatively short run, yeah. Later, there was a flour and grist mill from 1869 into the late 1880s. Shows a shift maybe towards agriculture.
And then Charles H. Burwell arrived.
Right, in 1874. He managed the Minnetonka Mill Company and his house, that beautiful Victorian home.
The Burwell House, yeah. It's still there.
It is. On the National Register of Historic Places, owned by the city now. A real connection to that time.
So Minnetonka Mills was really the center of things initially.
Oh, absolutely. For a good while, until the 1870s or so, it had its own post office, even a port on the lake. It was the main trading hub.
Were there other mills, too?
There were smaller ones, St. Albans Mill, another grist mill in Purgatory Creek, though I think that one washed out in a flood.
Yeah.
But Minnetonka Mills was the big one.
It's interesting how the city's shape changed over time. It started out much bigger.
Oh, yeah. The original township was a full 36 square miles.
But then places like Wayzata, Hopkins, Deep Haven, they incorporated separately.
Exactly. Between 1883 and 1956, they, along with Woodland and St. Louis Park, annexed land or incorporated, shrinking Minnetonka's original area.
What does that tell us?
Well, it shows that whole process of suburban development, right?
Yeah.
Communities carving out their own identities. What started maybe more rural.
I read there were farms and horse pastures into the 1960s.
Right into the 60s. A totally different feel from the fully developed suburb you see today. But they've kept some history. Their town hall from 1906 is also on the National Register.
So, geographically speaking, what are we looking at today?
Total area is about 28.22 square miles. Most of that is land, 26.93 square miles.
And about 1.3 square miles of water.
Correct. And that water includes that eastern part of Lake Minnetonka.
And the creek, Minnehaha Creek, is the outlet.
That's the one. It flows out of the lake, heads through South Minneapolis over the falls.
And into the Mississippi.
Connects it all. And the city itself is about 8 miles west of Minneapolis in Hennepin County.
Okay, let's talk about the economy. Minnetonka seems to punch above its weight, corporation-wise.
It certainly does. I mean, you've got the headquarters for Cargill there.
The largest private company in the U.S. That's huge.
It is. Interestingly, their mailing address is Wayzata, even though they're physically in Minnetonka. Shows how linked those areas are.
And also United Health Group.
Yep, Minnesota's largest publicly owned company. Having those two giants based there is pretty significant.
But it's not just them, right? There are other big names.
Oh, definitely. Carlson, Digital River, Radisson Hotel Group, AmeriPride, G&K Services. It's a pretty diverse economic base.
Do we have numbers on the biggest employers?
Yeah, from a 2021 report, United Health Group was the largest, around 4,400 employees.
Okay.
Cargill next, 3,400. Then the Minnetonka Public Schools, actually, with almost 1,900 staff.
Interesting.
Then you have Rosemount Engineering, that's Emerson Starkey Labs, St. Jude Medical, Medica Health Plans, all around 1,300 to 1,600. SuperValue, MTS, A lot of jobs there.
It really establishes it as a major employment center.
No question.
What about education? You mentioned the Minnetonka School District is a big employer.
Right. And the school situation is kind of interesting because the city is served by 3 different independent districts.
3.
Hopkins covers the central and eastern parts.
Yeah.
Minnetonka School District covers the west. And Wayzata schools cover the northern edge.
Plus, Minnesota has open enrollment.
Exactly. So kids can potentially attend schools outside their zone district. Within Minnetonka itself, you've got Minnetonka district schools like Clear Springs, Groveland, Scenic Heights Elementaries.
Minnetonka Middle School East, Minnetonka High School.
Correct, though that district also has schools outside the city limits.
And the Hopkins district also has schools physically in Minnetonka.
Yes, several elementaries, Gatewood, Glen Lake, Tanglin, and junior highs. Plus, Hopkins High School itself serves a big chunk of Minnetonka, even though the school isn't technically in the city. That district stretches into other cities, too.
Any private schools?
A few. Excel Academy, Notre Dame Academy, Minnetonka Christian Academy.
And libraries?
Big presence there, too. The main Hennepin County Library headquarters, Ridgedale Libraries in Minnetonka. Plus, the local Minnetonka Library branch. So, good access to education and information.
Let's look at the people, demographics. What did the 2020 census show?
Population was 53,781 in 2020. Slightly down on the 2022 estimate, around 52,500.
And density?
Just under 2,000 people per square mile. Pretty standard for a developed suburb.
How about the racial makeup? Has it changed?
It has become more diverse. In 2010, it was about 90% white. By comparison, in 2000, it was over 94% white.
Okay.
In 2010, you also had about 3.7% African-American, 3.1% Asian. So yeah, definitely diversification over that decade.
And the median age?
It went up slightly, from 41 in 2000 to 45 in 2010.
Yeah, and income.
The median household income back in 2000 was quite high, over $83,000.
How is the city governed?
They use a city council structure. There's a mayor and then 6 council members.
Are they all elected by district?
No, 2 are elected at large, meaning by the whole city. The other 4 represent specific wards or districts.
And they make the policy.
Right, the council is a legislative body. They then hire a professional city manager who handles the day-to-day administration, implementing the council's policies.
The council manager system. Pretty common.
Very common, yeah. Keeps politics and administration somewhat separate.
And basic services, like mail.
Yeah, Minnetonka Post Office and a carrier annex. And it's covered by 4 different zip codes, 55305, 55343, 55345, 55391, again showing those overlaps with neighbors.
Politically, what's the representation?
At the federal level, Minnetonka is in Minnesota's 3rd congressional district, currently represented by Democrat Kelly Morrison.
Any trends in, say, presidential elections?
Well, in the recent ones, 2020 and 2024, the city leaned toward the Democratic candidate.
Okay. Shifting gears a bit. Sports? Anything notable?
Actually, yes. Bandy. The Minnetonka Dynamo.
Bandy. Like ice hockey, but with a ball.
Kinda, yeah. Big in Scandinavia. And the Dynamo were national champs several times, 1994, 98, 2000.
Huh. Learn something new. Any baseball.
Yep. The Minnetonka Millers, they're a Class A amateur team, had a great run, state champs 3 years in a row, 2015 to 2017.
Where do they play?
Veterans Field, right there on the Minnetonka High School campus. Nice community connection.
And notable people. Anyone famous from Minnetonka?
Quite a few, across different fields. You've got athletes like Bo Allen from the NFL, Alan Berthon, the dancer from Dancing with the Stars, hockey players Jake Gardner and Mike Ramsey.
Mike Ramsey. From the Miracle on Ice team.
That's the one. Also, basketball player Chris Humphreys lived there, actor Ryan McCartan, chess grandmaster Wesley So, even former Governor Al Quie.
Wow. Quite a list.
Yeah.
From sports to politics to chess.
It shows the kind of place it is, or attracts.
Thinking about history again, there's been a recent development with the local historical societies, hasn't there?
Yes, a really positive one. In 2023, several groups consolidated to form the Lake Minnetonka Historical Society.
Which ones?
It brought together the Excelsior Lake Minnetonka Group, the Museum of Lake Minnetonka, and the Wayzata and Westonka Historical Societies.
So a unified effort for the whole lake area now.
Exactly. It allows them to pool resources, manage their collections archives, artifacts more effectively, and tell that broader Lake Minnetonka story.
Where can people access their stuff?
Their research archives are housed at the Wayzata Public Library, and they run museums in Excelsior, Mound, and Wayzata, each with its own focus and hours.
And they're working on the Minnehaha, the old streetcar boat.
They are. That's a major project. The goal is to get it running again as a sort of floating museum on the lake. Really ambitious.
That would be amazing.
It really connects you to that steamboat era.
And it's important to remember the Lake Minnetonka area includes many communities, right? Not just Minnetonka City.
Oh, absolutely. Deep Haven, Excelsior, Greenwood, Minnetonka Beach, Minnetrista, Mound, Orono, Shorewood, Spring Park, Tonka Bay, Victoria, Wayzata, Woodland. They all ring the lake.
Each with its own history.
Definitely. And Wayzata in particular has a story that's really intertwined with Minnetonka's, even though it's its own city.
It borders Minnetonka.
Shares a border, yeah. And Wayzata's history is deep. It started as a Native American settlement, then it became a huge transportation point in the 19th century.
Steamboats first, then the railroad.
Exactly. The Minneapolis and St. Louis Railway came through in the 1870s, and that really cemented its role as a hub on the lake.
Was it also a resort town?
Big time. In the late 1800s, there were grand hotels, attractions like Big Island Park. People from the cities came out there to escape the heat and relax.
But it changed, like Minnetonka did.
Yeah, cars changed everything. It transitioned more into a residential suburb in the mid-20th century. Still a really vibrant community today, though.
And that historic train depot is still there.
It is. It's a museum now, run by that consolidated Lake Minnetonka Historical Society.
And Wayzata keeps evolving, right? New developments happening.
Always. Things like new car dealerships, condos, memory care places. It shows it's not static.
Plus, lots of parks and trails.
Oh, yeah. The Panaway Lake Walk is beautiful, connecting to regional trails like the Dakota and Loose Line. Without a beach is popular. Lots of recreation.
And an active community life. Events, meetings.
Seems so. Regular city meetings, things like Arbor Month celebrations. You see local news about bank histories, city management changes, discussions about local taxes. People are engaged.
How does Wayzata compare demographically to Minnetonka overall?
It's smaller, population around 4,400 in 2023. But the demographics are a bit different. The median age is quite a bit higher, nearly 59.
Wow.
And median household income and property values are significantly higher, too. Income around $125,000, median property value over $1 million.
So a different feel within the same broader area.
Suggests a different slice of the population, yeah.
But still with community involvement, like volunteer gardening.
Things like that, yeah. And it has its own share of well-known restaurants, shops, events like James J. Hill Days. Plus, the Wayzata School District has a very strong reputation.
And distinct neighborhoods within Wayzata itself.
Right. Places like Regatta Wayzata Bay, Gleason Lake, Locust Hills adds to the texture of the whole Lake Minnetonka region.
So wrapping this up, the city of Minnetonka really offers this fascinating look at suburban evolution.
Absolutely. From its Dakota name and early mills to becoming this major corporate center, all connected by the lake.
Its history, its geography, its economy, the schools, the people, it's a complex picture.
And you can't really understand it fully without seeing its connection to the wider Lake Minnetonka area through things like the Historical Society and the stories of neighbors like Wayzata.
It definitely paints a rich picture, which kind of leaves us with a thought, doesn't it? You look at Minnetonka's journey from big water and wilderness through industry to this modern suburb hosting global companies. How do communities like this strike that balance, between holding on to their history and embracing all the development and change that keeps coming?
That's the constant tension, isn't it? Preserving identity while moving forward, something you see playing out everywhere.
Makes you wonder how it will look in another 50 years. A lot to think about, and certainly a reason to explore the history and present of the whole Lake Minnetonka area more.